world of evil. Vedanta alone does it. No devil at all. We are all devil within ourselves. When you do wicked, you are the devil. Shankara says in the commentary, Deva, Asura, Manushya. These stories you get plenty in your Puranas. Shankara says they are not separate things. They are all human beings only. With certain qualities, you call them Asura. With certain other qualities, you call them Deva. It's all here only. You can be a Deva just now. You can be an Asura just now. That's all human being only. Now that rational thinking you find in Shankara's writings, and so this challenge is there. Maya must be treated as a challenge. How the infinite has become finite, not has become, appears to have become finite. That's called the word appearance. You can ask the same thing in physical science. How does the particles of the particle world become molecular structures above? How did they become this? You can ask that question. There is no answer. This very matter is nothing but energy, dance of what you call particles below. And yet, you touch it as a solid object. How did this become that? It has not become. At one level of vision, it is like this. Deeper level, it is like this. Even now, it is only nothing but energy. It is not at all a flat table. So that is what science will say. We did the same thing. This is the Paramartha view, that is the Vyavahara view. Vyavahara point of view, sensory point of view. Sensory point of view, it is all like this. You see good, bad, indifferent, high, low, everything is there. Paramartha point of view, everything is the Atman. When you realize that truth, this is what comes to you. Everything is the Atman. Everything in the world, solar system, is nothing but condensations of solar radiation. Sarvam khalu idam brahma. Whole universe certainly is nothing but Brahman, is the statement of the Upanishad. This is how Vedanta deals with this problem of evil in a world which is essentially one. There is no second. But in Christianity, the devil plays a big part. Everything is devil. In fact, it has gone too far. And today's Christianity is trying to get rid of the devil from Christian theology. They want to remove it. They could hold conferences. Why do you want the devil? We shall not have this unscientific notion in our religion. But many others do not accept it. We want the devil. We want the devil. Without devil, we can't explain evil in the world. So there is struggle going on. We have no such struggle. We have no second thing called devil. Everything is one. One infinite Atman. Just like solar system, one sun. All radiations come from the sun. The flower is that sun. The dirt, the street is that sun. The good water flowing in the river is that sun. Mountain, the tree, everything, the same solar radiation condensed in some form or the other. In this way, we have that unifying principle, explaining the differences that are there. In that explanation, the word Maya comes. That is what Schrödinger, nuclear physicist, says, that if one infinite Atman shines as so many individuals in the world, it is due to the Indian Maya. Means it appears to be so. In reflections are many, but sun is only one. In a number of pots, you can see the reflection of the sun, but that is not a sun. Sun is that. This is how one infinite Atman, we are all that. Only we don't know it. Try to know it. Then, as soon as you struggle to do so, you are now creating Vidya Maya out of Avidya Maya. That is called spiritual progress, ethical progress, human progress, by the play of Vidya Maya. That is the challenge of Maya to all of us. Here is the Upanishad, this particular chapter of book 3, we are completing today, and later on we enter into the 4th. Wonderful ideas will come. So in the first chapter, very ordinary theological ideas come. Later on, a profound discussion will come about the nature of light. This light, what is the source of this light? There is a light of all lights. There is the light of the Atman, light of pure consciousness. That is the light that lights up everything in this world. That subject will come in that chapter. So we shall take up the subject next Sunday when we meet again. Here, 16th. Today we just complete the third book, where only one or two verses are left, and that too not very important, and enter the fourth book, where also the first 2-3 chapters are very ordinary, not highly philosophically significant, but immediately after comes a very profound section. There we shall spend more time. Here we were dealing with Gargi addressing Yajnavalkya. Yajnavalkya replying, what is space interpenetrated with? For the last question. And he answered, that immutable reality, Brahman, of the nature of pure consciousness, that is what interpenetrates all space, undifferentiated space. Etasminno akasha otascha potascheti. He said like that in that section. And then finally she said, addressing the audience, it is better you salute him and get away. You can't defeat him. That is Gargi's remark to all the learned people gathered there. Yajnavalkya later on asked all of them, ask any question you like, individually, collectively, I shall answer them. And all kept quiet. That is how this whole section ended. That is 3:9. 9th chapter of third book, where Shakalya puts this question and Yajnavalkya answers. In the end of that answer, you get a very high spiritual teaching which had come earlier, but which is now stressed at this point, where he says in this number 3:9-25, there is subject comes to 26. Sa esha neti neti atma. All that we were discussing earlier, small powers of nature, or prana, or akasha, so many items we have seen. But when you come to the Atman, no language can help us there. Therefore, sa esha neti neti, na iti, not this, not this, not this alone you can say, where speech and thought absolutely become silent. That is nature, the ultimate reality of the self. Sa esha neti neti atma. Why? Agrihyo, he says, nahi grihyate. It cannot be grasped, though it is the principle of all grasping. All these various questions are asked here. He says, it is imperceptible. No sense organs can grasp it, but it is never perceived, undecaying. For it never decays, unattached. It is never attached, unfettered. It never feels pain, never suffers injury. These are all the 8 abodes, the 8 instruments of vision, the 8 deities, and the 8 beings. Everything is the Atman. Through various configurations, you call the Atman by separate names, and you think this is the real, or this is the only truth. That's not correct. These are all various configurations, apparent limitations of the one infinite Atman. Having said this, he says, I ask you of that being, of that Purusha, which is taught only in the Upanishads, which is known only in the Upanishads. That is a very fine teaching. Upanishadam Purusham. Purusha taught only in the Upanishads. As I said last Sunday, in no other literature will you get this teaching that the self in man is also the self of the universe. We realize God through the self that is in you and me. This is an indication. This is an initial datum from which we can reach up to the infinite divine. Most of the mystics have realized this truth, whether it is a Christian or Sufi or Hindu. But very often they couldn't give expression to it. Orthodoxy won't allow it. If they do so, they will be killed also. And many have been killed. And when they give expression, they just give it with very cautious words, so that the main truth cannot be uttered, because it goes against the church or the official doctrine. Only in India, you can just give free expression to the higher spiritual experience. So he said, this teaching of the unity of the Atman is found only in the Upanishads, nowhere else. Upanishads eva vijnayate, na anyatra, nowhere else. Shankara is explaining that subject, the Purusha that is in the Upanishads, the Atman, in you and me, the whole world is one. There is no two of the nature of pure consciousness. We don't speak of a God sitting somewhere in the sky, that kind of monotheism as they call it. We don't have that. God who is nearest to us. Yat sakshat. That's how the chapter started, the book started. Yat sakshat aparokshat brahma ya atma sarvantaraha. That is the speciality of this particular section of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The God who is far away in space, you can never know. I was reading in that book that if there are civilizations in some faraway galaxy, 200 million light years away, suppose you communicate with them. You communicate through the speed of light by radio communication. But when you start communicating, they will get it, and the reply will come to you when you are seventh generation, not earlier than that. So, heaven, which is somewhere in far away, a God sitting there, has lost all relevance. Nobody will accept it today. And yet, God is a tremendous truth. You must understand how to approach it. You get in these Upanishads very original approach. Let us study man. Find out his profound dimension from the external to the internal. We do find difference from the external to the internal, more subtle, more immense in range and power, energies we find in the human being. From that they concluded that in this human being you can discover the immortal and the infinite. The skin and the body are very limited in power. The nervous system more subtle but more immense in power. The psychic system still more subtle, more immense in power. Beyond the psyche is the Atman, the center of infinite energy. Shankara therefore has given a calculus of this increase of subtlety, immensity, invertness in the Kathopanishad commentary, translating the word para, indriyebhya para hyartha, that is the shloka in the Gita and the Kathopanishad. The nuclear dimension of matter is superior to our sense organs. That is the first statement. Indriyebhya para hyartha. Artha means sense object in the sense of the nuclear dimension. Arthebhyascha param manaha. Manas is superior, para, to that nuclear dimension. Manasastu para buddhi. Buddhi is still superior to manas. And beyond buddhi is the cosmic buddhi. That is still for more subtle and immense in range and power. Beyond that is the avyakta, the undifferentiated state of this world, in which all the energies of the world are compressed in a small form, as the avyakta state. And beyond the avyakta, more infinite, expansive, and more truly subtle is the Atman, the Purusha. Sa kashtha, sa paragatihi. That is the supreme state. Nothing beyond it. One infinite, non-dual reality. That is how Shankara commented upon it in the Katha Upanishad. So here he said, I am asking you of the being who is to be known only from the Upanishads. Upanishadam Purusham Prachamaha, he said. Then, if you cannot clearly tell me, your head will fall off. That is how the way of putting it at that time. Shakalya stopped further. The conference broke up, nothing more to tell. This is how it is mentioned here. And towards the end of the chapter, book number 39, so many verses come. Simple verses, mostly of that theological nature, of that type of theology that obtained at the time, which have no relevance to our times in which we live. And so we have got other scientific notions, whether it is biology, astronomy, or anything. We can take charge of this and not deal with this. These are all details of the external world, where modern science is better authority than any Upanishad or any other book. Shankara himself has said, where is the authority of the Upanishad? Only in the region above the sensory level. Anything that can be seen through the senses, Upanishads have no authority. Very boldly, Shankara has said, Atindriya vastu vishaye shrutirevana pramanam. Shruti alone is our pramana in things beyond the sensory level. Up to the sensory level, our own eyes, our own ears, our own sense data, and the inductive, detective mind, they become the authority. They say this is right, wrong. Then he has the boldness to say, even if the Shruti tells you that fire is cold, don't accept it. Even 1,000 Shrutis, if they say fire is cold, don't accept it, because your own Pratyaksha certifies that fire is hot. Shruti cannot deny it. So, Atindriya vastu vishaya, truth which is beyond the sensory system, there Shruti comes in the picture. So, in this book, such Shruti passages are marvelous. And there you will find Shankara's commentary, very luminous, long, extensive, but when he deals with the other aspects, very short translation, just a few remarks, that is all. Because we can get better knowledge today, in today's physical science, dealing with the world outside, botany, zoology, physics, astronomy. All this you can get plenty of detailed knowledge in today's science. So here, these shlokas all are of that nature, and towards the end, it says, Vijnanam Anandam Brahma. Finally, he concludes in this section. Brahman is Vijnanam Anandam. That is Brahman. Knowledge or consciousness and bliss. That's nature of Brahman. Vijnanam Anandam Brahma. This is to be fully understood. There are 3 or 4 utterances known as Mahavakyas, great utterances, Mahavakya, in Upanishads. One occurs in the Aitareya Upanishad, Prajnanam Brahma. Brahman is Prajnanam, consciousness, pure consciousness, that is Brahman. Similarly, Tattvamasi, you are that, Aham Brahmasmi. All these are called Mahavakyas, containing profound truths in a few words. Therefore, they are called Mahavakyas. That's something like modern equations or various physical facts. We give an equation. That equation is a short form of writing the whole thing. So this is the teaching of the Vedanta, that Brahman is the ultimate reality, it's of the nature of pure consciousness. We are also one with that Brahman. Our Atman also is of the nature of pure consciousness. The Atman cannot be divided. It is undivided in all of us. There is only one Atman in all of us. These are all the great teachings that came out of the Upanishads and that form the great pith and marrow of our entire later literature. Puranic, songs, hymns, every one of them you take, this will be the base for every one of them. Experiential approach to Brahman. Brahman you can experience because it is your own self. What can be nearer to me than my own self? That self is there. So the question asked at the beginning of the section was on this particular subject. He said, Yat Sakshat Aparokshat Brahma Ya Atma Sarvantara Tamme Vyachakshva. Explain to me that Brahman which is Sakshat Aparokshat, immediate and direct, and who is the self of all. Ya Atma Sarvantara, inner self of all. That is the main theme of this section. That is what is ended here by saying Vijnanam Anandam Brahma. He says, that is the wonderful teaching. There is a reference here, interesting reference, the nerves in the system, blood vessels in the system, they can be extremely small. They can be big, like aorta and all that, much bigger. Now, in one particular reference, he says here, there is a nerve which is as small as a hair divided 1,000 times. That language you find here. A hair divided 1,000 times. Very interesting type of measurement there. In fact, in our Hindu tradition, measurements, weights, as well as distances and time, these have been made thorough study at the lowest level, at the highest level. Both ways you will find this capacity. So in this particular case, he spoke of the hair that is of that nature, anu, like a subtle, extremely subtle form. So how can we cut a hair 1,000 times? How little it will be, microscopic it will be, but that is the type of the subtle nerve that is there in the human system, making for the subtle body of the human being. That subject came here, gross body, subtle body. These two they have to study. This will come later, the study of this, through study of waking, study of dream. Gross body functions only in waking, and the subtle body functions in dream. This is a wonderful study that is coming in the chapter ahead. Here, the whole section ends by saying that everything is Brahman. Vijnanam Anandam Brahma. That is the nature of Brahman. We enter into the fourth book. In the fourth book, I will just read the first shloka. Interesting beginning. But the contents are not so important. So we pass through all this and come to the next section, where a profound philosophy and spirituality is expounded, which are things which are discussed today in physics, biology, neurology, psychology. That subject will come. Here the fourth section begins. Say, Janako Vaideha Asam Chakre. Janaka Vaideha was sitting. Then Ataha Yajnavalkya Abhavraja. There Yajnavalkya came in. There is another situation, another event. He came in. Tam Hovacha. Yajnavalkya Kimartham Achari. Janaka asked Yajnavalkya, for what purpose have you come? He asked. You see, the humor is there. Pashun, Anyachan, Anvantaniti. Have you come in search of cows and also to argue and discuss profound things? Have you come for this or that? He asked. Quietly answered, I come for both. Immediately he said, Vayamapi Samraditi. O Emperor, I have come for both. You gave me cows, very good, that is wealth, and I want spiritual thought and discussion, that also. So that is the first. But the questions are not very important. In the beginning, first, let me hear what he says. Any of you, Emperor Janaka came, Yajnavalkya, what has brought you here? To have some animals or to hear some subtle questions? Both, O Emperor, said Yajnavalkya. Then the answer, Yajnavalkya is, let me hear, but any one of your teachers may have told you. He is telling Janaka. Then Janaka is replying. Series of slokas come. Some aspect of Brahman. One aspect, another aspect, another aspect. All these are come. Yajnavalkya merely said there is only one aspect. That is one leg of the stool. There are 3 legs or 4 legs, only one, not 2. Like that he answers. It goes on. These are all not so important. It comes like that. Then, towards the end, very big question will come. Let me hear what so-and-so told. He told like this. And in the section, we begin next section. Section 2. That means 4, 2, 1. That is, there you begin. Again, repetition of the story. Janako Havaideha says, Purcha Dupasat Janaka, the emperor Videha, rose from his lounge. He was sitting on a lounge and being an emperor, and approaching Yajnavalkya said, "Salutations to you, Yajnavalkya. Please instruct me," he said. Yajnavalkya replied, "As one wishing to go a long distance, O emperor, should secure a chariot or a boat, so have you fully equipped your mind with so many secret names of Brahman. You are likewise respected and wealthy, and you have studied the Vedas and heard the Upanishads. But where will you go when you are separated from this body?" That is the question Yajnavalkya asked Janaka. "I do not know, sir, where I shall go." "Then I will tell you where you will go." "Tell me, sir," Janaka said. That is how this subject begins. This will lead us to Brahman. Ultimately, that is the place we belong to. That is our true nature. And then he will bless Yajnavalkya. You have realized Brahman. You have become fearless. For the name of Brahman is fearlessness. That is a beautiful expression in this Upanishad. It says, Janaka gave up his pride of leadership, rose from his lounge, and approaching Yajnavalkya, prostrating himself at his feet, said, "Salutations to you, Yajnavalkya. Please instruct me." Then Yajnavalkya said, "As in this world, one wishing to go to a long distance should secure a chariot if he wants to go by land, or a boat if he wants to go by water. So have you fully equipped your mind with so many secret names of Brahman by meditating upon Brahman in so many aspects bearing those names?" That is Yajnavalkya's question. Not only that, you are likewise respected and wealthy, not poor, and you have studied the Vedas, heard the Upanishads from teachers. Although you are thus endowed with all glories, with that, you are but in the midst of fear. In spite of all this, you are still in the midst of fear. In fact, the most important element of life is fear. Take any animal, full of fear. Human being, full of fear. Fear is there throughout every aspect of human life. But there is a state called fearlessness, and the knowledge of Brahman is being presented as that state where you become truly fearless. So he is telling Janaka, although you are thus endowed with all glories, you are but in the midst of fear, owing to the absence of self-knowledge, knowledge of the self, that I am the immortal self, that knowledge is not there. So fear is bound to be there. There is one lesson we learn in science: knowledge destroys fear. There's a wonderful statement in all scientific treatises. A primitive man is full of fear. When you have scientific knowledge, fear goes. But today we understand, all fear will not go through scientific knowledge. Other fears come. Some fears go, other fears come. And today you can see, the more scientific a nation, the more fear there is among the people. Fear is the cause of tension. All tension is a form of fear. Tensions are most in the most scientific nations of the world. And so, fear has not gone because you will know about the world. You have not studied the other aspect, your own true nature. There you will get true fearlessness. So, knowledge destroys fear is true, partially, external knowledge. But full knowledge must mean knowledge of your own true self. Then you become utterly fearless. That statement comes only in this Upanishadic literature. Through the Upanishads you got it in the Puranas and the Gita. But only here, in every religion, religion means fear. Fear of God, fear of this, fear of that, and fear of the devil. Fear is everywhere, even in religion. Normal life is fear. Religion also is full of fear. But here, a religion is presented where there is no place for fear. Fearlessness is the important aspect of religion according to the Sanatana Dharma. You get it in the Gita. Those who give up fear alone can realize the Atman. Veta, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. Bhaya has no value for life. nor for ethical life, nor for any life. So people say people must be taught to fear so that they behave well. No, fear has no virtue. It has not at all anything to do with character, conduct, behavior. But we are using it. Fear of punishment, fear this, fear that, etc. Ultimately, you destroy the moral life of the individual if you build it upon mere fear. This is the Vedantic teaching, very much appreciated by the most modern minds. Fear has no place, like children in the primary school, say 50 years ago, full of fear. A teacher with a big stick, beating it also all the time, full of fear for the student. Now later on, a reaction came. No punishment. Remove that cane once for all. Fear is no instrument of education. And yet it is not decided yet. Many teachers do want to use the cane in England. They have protested against the government rule not to have capital punishment, this kind of what they call beating with stick, etc. But the truth today is fear is not the means to educate a human being. That makes him more sulky, more weak, and all the other evil characteristics will come to the person. Only through fearlessness you can build up the character of a person, the development of a person. There's a Vedantic vision. So the word fearlessness comes again and again in this literature, in the Upanishadic literature. So he said, if you are far from achieving the object of your life till you realize the Supreme Brahman, with all this outfit serving as a boat or a chariot, where will you go when you are separated from this body? Yajnavalkya asking, what will you attain? I do not know, sir, where I will go, Yajnavalkya said. If thus you do not know where you will go to achieve the object of your life, then I will tell you where you will go. Tell me, sir, if you are gracious to listen to me. Listen. That's how the subject. Now, many of the discussions, they belong to the theological thought of the time. Not much of relevance here. So many passages come like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. It is here. It is that passage. The nerve that goes upward from the heart. It is like a hair split into 1,000 parts that you get in the 4, 2, 3. So all these subjects are of that nature. Now we come to the Brahmana 4. Ditiyam Brahmanam number 4. 424. There. The translation says, of the sage who is identified with the vital force or prana. The east is the eastern vital force, south southern, west western, north northern, and above and as well as below. This itself is that which has been described as not this, not this. Once again, this Atman is neti, neti, neti. It is imperceptible, for it is never perceived. Undecaying, never decays. Unattached, it is never attached. Unfettered, never feels pain, never suffers injury. You have attained that which is free from fear. Oh, Janaka, said Yajnavalkya. He said, the language is beautiful. Asango, asito, navyatate, narishyati, abhayam vai Janaka praptosi. You have achieved abhayam, fearlessness, prapti. There. Hova Yajnavalkya. Sahovacha Janako, Vaideha. Janaka replied, there. Abhayam tva gachatadi Yajnavalkya. He said, may that which is free from fear be yours as well, O Yajnavalkya, he said. For you have made that which is free from fear, known to us. You have done it. So you also have the same. Salutation. Free from fear, known to us. You have done it. So you also have the same. Salutations to you. Here is this empire of mine, Videha, as well as myself, at your service. That's what the king said to Yajnavalkya. Here, the subject that is being discussed, how an average human being can say, I realize Brahman, achieve fearlessness. What is the passage he takes, the road he takes? Use the word chariot or a boat. He said, similarly, what is the type of vehicle we take to reach this truth? That takes us through a wonderful investigation into our own, this physical system. What are the things that are there? Here you get to the study of the subject of the Atman based on experience, day-to-day experience of the most ordinary people. Everybody has experience of what? Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. This is a universal experience. Based upon a study of this experience, the sages discovered the infinite Atman, the one self in all. Is the beginning of that exposition here. It's coming a little later in a more concrete form. How they have given technical terms. Today when you read some of the books on psychiatry, these subjects come. The consciousness in its diverse forms, in altered states of consciousness, including the dream. These subjects you study there. Now, this self that is presiding over our waking state has been given a name. Vaishvanara is the name. The ego presiding over the waking state. As soon as you go to dream, this ego is not there. Another ego appears there. They call it Taijasa. See the term. How much of thinking has gone into naming concepts and finally drawing conclusion. Taijasa, Tejas. Because without any external light, the dream lights itself. You see everything in dream through your own light there. But Taijasa. Second, self that is within you. And when both disappear in deep sleep, what is there present there? We call it Prajna. So Vaishvanara, Taijasa, Prajna. The self appears in three forms. But actually there is only one self. They discover that one self is this investigation of the three selves that appear in life. That is called Avasthatraya. Three avasthas. So Avasthatraya Prakriya, methodology of the three avasthas. And here the Atman that exists in all the three states is called Turiya, the fourth. Not in number. The fourth, because we numbered three, therefore the word fourth. It is neither first, nor second, nor third, nor fourth. It is the only reality. Conditioned by the waking, we call it Vaishvanara. Conditioned by the dream, we call it Taijasa. Conditioned by the deep sleep, we call it Prajna. But Turiya is alone true. This is the subject that is expounded in a very, very concise way in the shortest of all Upanishads, the Mandukya Upanishad. Only 12 verses are there in that Upanishad. There, Turiya is presented after presenting the waking and the dream. That presentation said, Nanta Prajnam, Na Bahi Prajnam. There is no consciousness of the internal or consciousness of the external. All this are negated in that state of Turiya. Then he said, Prapanchopashamam, by the whole world ceases to be. Shantam, ever calm and pure. Shivam, auspicious. Chaturtham manyante, that's called Chaturtham, the fourth. So Atma, that is the Atman. Savijñeya, that has to be realized through experience itself, by understanding the various manifestations of this Vaishvanara, Taijasa and Prajna. We try to understand the Atman through extremely subtle thinking. Throughout life, the Atman is ever present. The eternal subject, the eternal knower, the eternal Sakshi, as the word was used here. And now, one simple logic tells us that if the ego of the waking is different from the ego of the dream, what is that which says, I dreamt and I woke up? Who is that I? There must be one I which is changeless to understand the changes that took place in waking and dream. If the waking I went away and dream I went away, who is to say I dreamed and I woke up? That I, you have to understand. That's an eternal I, changeless, ever there, extremely subtle. That study comes in the coming chapters of this fourth book. The fourth book is famous for that. The word samprasada will come there. The Atman in deep sleep, absolutely himself. Nothing is there. No subject, no object. Pure Atman alone. But in sleep we don't realize it. Neither in waking we realize, in sleep we had it. To us sleep is only sleep. But sleep, philosophically speaking, has a profound dimension. Absolutely nothing is there. Only pure Atman, pure consciousness, nothing else. That is the conclusion that will come to. But here it is just the introduction by Yajnavalkya to Janaka. And praising him, he has become fearless through this knowledge of Brahman, ever present. There is no death at all. Some 2 Sundays ago, I read from this very Upanishad Shankara's commentary. There is such a thing as death of death, the language. Death we are familiar with, but there is death of death. That's the Atman. The Atman is a death of death. Atman is immortal. So, death has no power there. So the word death of death is the language used to describe the nature of that immortal being. That's our true nature. Its discovery is the greatest discovery in the Upanishads. You get passages in Kathopanishad and other Upanishads dealing with this search and this discovery through a very profound technique by simply turning the energies now going to the world of death, the world of change, into the inside. When they turned the energies in, they found the mortal behind the mortal. That is ever there. But the mind is not prepared for it. Senses are not prepared for it. They have got that external kind of tendency. So the Upanishad said, somebody took up the challenge. Why should I see only change? What is behind this world of change? Unless there is a one which is changeless, how can you understand change at all? You ask that question. Can you say there is change unless there is something changeless? You find out the answer for yourself, simple logically. You are sitting in a room, somebody came to see you. When he left, you also left. Somebody else came and sat in the room. Somebody else went to see him. He said, series of people did it. But how do you know that A came and B came and C came unless somebody was there, was doing all the time, watching everything? That's Sakshi. That Sakshi is the Turiya. That's the Atman. And you are that. You are that. You are not this ego that comes and goes. You are the Sakshi which never comes, never goes, ever the same. That is what Vedanta wants to expound as simply as possible through the study of the 3 states. So here, Taijasa is the dream state, the self as appearing in the dream state. It is all one person. I dream, I wake, true. But who is this I? To catch him is very difficult. It is this ego. It's not ego. This ego is not there when you go to dream. The first lesson we have to learn, that the ego of the waking state is relevant only for the waking state. It has no relevance to any other state. So, after eating a heavy meal, and you go to sleep and you dream, I am hungry, that ego must be different from this ego. A poor man goes to a dream. He thinks I have become an emperor. This ego was a poor man. That ego is an emperor. How can this ego be that? Ego is different. So the change of egos and reality of the ego is a profound dimension. But what is behind the ego? That you get through this investigation of Jagrat, Sapna, Sushupti, and Gaudapada, Shankaracharya's grand teacher, has written that famous commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad, known as Karikas. Mandukya Upanishad Karikas, in 4 chapters, by Gaudapada. That is the best book on this subject of the 3 states and discovering the one changeless behind the changing many. And this becomes expressed in various languages in our books. One such is Mahabharata, that this human being is a combination or a complex of 2 items, Jada and Chaitanya. We are a combination of both. Something Jada is within us, something Chaitanya